Versace, synonymous for their luxury lifestyle, unmistakable look, and embracing of diversity, empowering everyone to express themselves. Even though there are similar family-run heavyweight Italian fashion brands, Versace's story of resilience and strength is unparalleled. With a lavish and exuberant style, the Versace empire became the pinnacle of fashion, thriving as a globally recognized name. So let's get one thing straight before we begin. It's not Versace. It's Versace. Giovanni Mario Versace, aka Gianni, was born on the 2nd of December 1946 in Reggio di Calabria in Italy. He was the third of his 4 siblings. The first, born in 1940, was Tina. Second, his brother Santo in 1944. And fourth, his younger sister Donatella was born in 1955. However, Donatella never had the opportunity to meet her older sister. Unfortunately, Tina passed away in 1952 at just age 12. She'd fallen over at a carnival, scraped her knee, and contracted tetanus. And she passed away not even 24 hours later. Their father was a salesman, whilst their mother, Francesca, was the matriarch of the family. She ran her own clothing shop where she employed a dozen seamstresses. This meant that Versace's children grew up surrounded by fashion magazines, fabrics, and patterns. This sparked Gianni's love for fashion, and he designed his first dress at just age 10. After completing high school, Gianni became an apprentice at his mother's shop until age 26, when he then moved to Milan to work in fashion design. Less than a year on, in 1973, he became a designer at Gianni's, an Italian label. After a successful time here producing new lines in 1978, Gianni created his own fashion company, Gianni Versace S.p.A. He designed his first collection in Milan and showcased it at Fashion Week that September. A few months later, he opened his first boutique in Milan. From day one, Versace had built the company with the support of his family. Gianni held 50% of the shares, with the rest held by Santo, who acted as president, and Donatella, who had even moved to Milan to be with him, learn from him, and serve as his muse. She also helped with clothing design as a creative consultant, offering insights and critiques. Gianni's aesthetic, luxury combined with overt sexuality, attracted much criticism in addition to its praise. The Versace brand became synonymous with tasteful, sexy luxury wear, glamorous styles, vivid colours, bold prints, and sexy cuts. A refreshing contrast to Italy's usual muted tones and simplicity. The head of Medusa was also a recurring image on many Versace items. Medusa was the Greek mythological figure known for having hair made of snakes and eyes that could turn men into stone. She was the symbol of a strong woman. Gianni said that he wanted to use Medusa because her devastating beauty made everyone fall in love with her, and he hoped that his clothing would produce the same dazzling effect. Medusa captivates the theme of the brand, empowering women. She was also the embodiment of the same strength as his mother, whose success fueled Gianni in his own work. He was an innovator. As a designer, he used new techniques such as aluminium mesh or cutting-edge techniques like neo-couture laser technology to fuse rubber and leather. But also as a businessman too, Gianni took a very hands-on approach, staying very involved in both the business and creative side of the company. In his marketing, he was also a pioneer, deciding to feature celebrities in Versace's campaigns. He revolutionized the industry even further, inviting them to his shows and filling the front row with A-listers and it people. This allowed him to develop strong relationships, making lifelong friendships with icons such as Kate Moss and Madonna. This concept is still used today, with the front row being a highly desired seat of status and a sign of importance. Gianni Versace was sometimes called the rock and roll designer because of his ties to a number of musicians. He frequently designed clothes for artists like Michael Jackson and Elton John, two very good friends. Elton John even gifted Gianni's niece her first piano. His relationship with the music industry led to the integration of music at his fashion shows. He was one of the first to combine the two, in a takeover that all stemmed from a Vogue cover. In 1990, 5 models took to the cover of British Vogue to embody the new woman of this new era. Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista, Tatiana Tiz, and Christy Turlington. After seeing the iconic shoot, singer George Michael cast them in his first video for his hit song, Freedom 90. visible to millions that watched MTV. Gianni saw the potential here and cast the same 5 girls to close his Autumn/Winter 91 Versace show. They strutted the runway, singing along to the same song from the music video. Versace's ability to create pop culture moments was ahead of its time. He was the leader of the new strategy and had even invented the supermodel phenomenon. He paid those models so much for their exclusivity during Fashion Week. The only show on their calendar would be Versace's, but the payslip was as though they had worked multiple shows. It was such a large sum. At this time, Versace was thriving, creating iconic looks for actresses such as Elizabeth Hurley's 1994 safety pin black gown, a piece that made her the topic of conversation and supposedly skyrocketed her acting career. He dressed famous rivals Tupac and Notorious B.I.G., and his siren dress became a true Versace signature. In 1989, he had also launched his first couture collection and Diffusion line. Versace was created as a gift to Donatella, who became the head designer of the line. Known for its rock chic aesthetic, it was an experimental style that challenged the norms of fashion. Collaborating with designers like Christopher Kane, J.W. Anderson, and Anthony Vasarello, being seen on celebrities from Zayn Malik to J.Lo, and even spotted on magazine covers such as Vogue and Elle. It was a huge success amongst a wider audience up until its closure in 2005. Even then, it was reopened in 2009 and eventually merged into a new line, Versace Jeans Couture, in 2018. In 1995, Gianni released a perfume in honor of his little sister, called Blonde. Meanwhile, in his new couture house, the way he created his designs was truly unique. Gianni sculpted directly on mannequins, showing the significance of his pieces' structural shapes and his designs. He included many meaningful details. In one of his first looks for Atelier Versace, he created a short black dress that was heavily embellished with branded safety pins, designed as a tribute to his mother and the fittings he helped with at her boutique. Another passion in Gianni's life was ballet. Throughout his career, he created many designs for theatre, opera, and ballet. Gianni and Donatella had a competitive but fiercely loving relationships, as most siblings do. They relied on each other to challenge themselves and better the company. Whilst they often clashed and bickered in the process, they always reverted to the same place of familial love. "We can fight at 6 o'clock and have a nice dinner at 8, Gianni said. Ella put a poll in the Luxe Circle the other day, which by the way is just where we have our daily conversations with you guys in our community about all things luxury. Anyway, she asked if you could run a business with family or not. And it seems like a lot of you wouldn't. If you want to join in our conversation next time, just subscribe to see our posts. Another prevalent relationship in Gianni's life was his long-term boyfriend, Antonio D'Amico. The pair met in 1982 and had an open relationship that lasted up until the end of Versace's life. The couple had no desire to settle down or have children, so their full focus was on the label. D'Amico worked as a designer for Versace's Diffusion lines. Donatella, however, was not so keen on him, saying, "I respected him as the boyfriend of my brother, but I never liked him as a person." Gianni's home, the Versace Mansion, was built in 1930 and served as a home to the heir of an oil fortune. Located in Miami, Casa Casuarina was a contemporary version of the Great Gatsby house, and it became Gianni's life and death. Donatella recalls that Gianni stopped in front of the building and said, "I want this house." Just like that, I want this house. But it wasn't a house, it was literally an apartment building and people were living in it. Nonetheless, he bought it in 1992 and spent over $32 million to transform the rundown building into the opulent mansion he'd call home for the rest of his life. He turned 24 apartments into 10 bedrooms and added a 54-foot-long mosaic tiled pool made up of over 1 million tiny tiles, and in those, thousands of 24-karat gold. Nowadays, it operates as a boutique hotel you can actually visit, including the pool you're allowed to swim in, views of the ocean, and a gourmet restaurant opened in the late designer's dining room. And yes, you can actually sleep in Gianni Versace's bedroom. In an ironic twist of fate, this paradise turned into the location of his tragic death. On July 15th, 1997, Gianni Versace was murdered at just 50 years old. His killer, Andrew Cunanan, was a crazed fan, obsessed and rumoured to have been jealously in love with Gianni. Cunanan had assassinated 4 other men on his way to the mansion, yet Versace was his final victim before he went on to kill himself. Before his death, Gianni had received treatment for a rare in-ear cancer During this, he had prepared his last will and testament. 30% of the Versace empire went to Santo, 20% to Donatella, and the remaining 50% was bequeathed by Gianni to his niece Allegra, who was only 11 years old at the time. Also in the will, a $30,000 monthly pension for Gianni's boyfriend, and the right for him to live in any of his houses. Donatella returned to the main Versace company and became the artistic director and vice president of the board, while Santo Versace, who already served as president, went on to become chairman. With all of Gianni's property owned by the company and controlled by Donatella, she prohibited D'Amico from living in any Versace property and only sent him a small percentage of his pension. Right after Gianni was shot, many companies came to Donatella asking her to sell them Versace, but Donatella wouldn't sell anything. My brother would have not wanted me to sell a single office chair. To him, the company was family, and you don't sell family. After the death of her brother, Donatella struggled with drug addiction. I couldn't stand the pain. I had to hide my feelings. What better way to hide your feelings than with drugs, she told Vogue. The addiction lasted for over 6 years before going to rehab in 2004. Who buys fashion from a weak, unstable designer who's out of her mind because she takes drugs and therefore can't stand herself? Nobody, she said. This and her children were the motivation behind her recovery. Despite during her early years at Versace being labelled by critics as a mere muse, mascot and de facto first lady to Gianni, the platinum-haired embodiment of the label's lifestyle has taken the brand to astronomical heights. Donatella Versace, the muse, became Donatella Versace, the author. Although she grew up in the same house as Gianni, Donatella had a very different upbringing. The circumstances had changed after Tina Versace's death, and Donatella was very aware of the sadness that hung over her parents. She recalls that her mother never recovered, and she felt that she was just her late sister's replacement. I felt when I was little, oh, I'm going to have to fill someone else's place. This was why I was born. As mentioned, she was in Versace from the start. She followed her brother to Milan, and destiny lived in the soul of their family. 2 years after working on the company, Donatella met her first husband, Paul Beck, who she married 3 years on in 1983. Together, they had 2 children, Allegra, who inherited the majority of Versace, and Daniel, who has never had any relation in the label. Her first marriage fell apart as Paul spent too much time traveling and reportedly cheated on Donatella, so the pair got divorced in 2000. Following her takeover, Donatella led the company through a design reinvention. The task required her to remove herself from Gianni's inspirations, cited as one of her biggest challenges as artistic director. She sought to make the Versace look her own. Through her success, she gained the fashion house critical acclaim and a reputation for sophistication, especially in women's fashion. In 2000, she created one of the most iconic pieces in fashion history, the green jungle dress, worn originally by Amber Valletta on the Spring-Summer 2000 runway, but brought to life when worn by Jennifer Lopez at the 42nd Grammy Awards. The piece was deemed an instant classic and made Donatella famous worldwide. News spread rapidly about the outfit, but it was impossible to see until the release of the printed mail, as at the time Google search results were limited to simple pages of text. Experiencing the most ever searched results for the phrase "the green Versace dress of Jennifer Lopez," the developers at Google realized an image search tool was required, and thus, this was the iconic moment that Google Images was born. This dress has been reimagined and referenced multiple times. On Ginger Spice at a red carpet, on Donatella herself at the 1999 Met Gala, and J-Lo even recreated the moment in 2019 when she closed Versace's Spring 2020 Milan show in a performance that included a Google image search field on screen with the command, "Okay Google, show me the Versace jungle dress," and multiple pictures popped up followed by, "Okay Google, show me the real Versace jungle dress," and Jennifer Lopez herself emerged onto the runway, bringing history to the present. From 2002 onwards, Donatella's face became the topic of conversation and the feature in the headlines. Thanks to her seemingly more artificially defined fullness, Donatella spoke on plastic surgery, saying, "I'm not a believer in the natural look. Natural? What is natural? I do not believe in totally natural women. For me, natural has something to do with vegetables." A few years later, her second marriage came to businessman Manuel Dallori. However, they only lasted 1 year and got divorced in 2005. Versace has had numerous crazy collaborations over the years. In 2006, they created the Lamborghini Versace, with only 20 ever made. The collaboration was ultra exclusive. Available in just black or white, featuring the Versace Greca print on the interior doors and seats with the Medusa emblem on the exterior of the car. There's also 8 silver plaques adorned around the vehicle with the collaboration engraved. In 2011, the luxury retailer collaborated with H&M, a pair unsurprising following the high street retailer's slew of previous collections in partnership with other luxury brands. In 2015, Donatella was also credited with designing the Palazzo Versace Dubai Hotel, which opened the following year. Reminiscent of an Italian palace with a striking entrance, 12,000 pieces of imported Italian furniture, 51 million mosaic squares and huge ceilings make up the building. This was the second Versace hotel to open. The first was in 2000 on Australia's Gold Coast. When designing the space, Donatella says, "I was inspired by many people, like actresses and important women. I thought of women more than men because I think a woman appreciates more than a man." She also drew inspiration from Gianni's Versace Mansion in Miami. However, she knew to make the prints more subtle and reduce the gold. "I wanted it to feel like a house, not a hotel. A Versace house, not a normal house," she recalled. Donatella Versace, as an icon herself, has been spotted making cameos in movies like Zoolander and The Devil Wears Prada. Whilst thanks to her looks, she's been parodied in TV shows such as Saturday Night Live and Ugly Betty. In 2013, she was played as a character in the House of Versace biographical film. And in 2012, Lady Gaga even wrote a song for her entitled Donatella. The industry, in awe of Gianni's success and life, chose to look back on the rise of Versace and the work of Gianni during the 1997 Met Gala and the exhibit at the Costume Institute. The installation was entitled Gianni Versace, and it showcased some of his most iconic looks. Meanwhile, stars arrived in abundance, dressed in glamorous Gianni dresses, sharing their love and celebrating the life of the fashion genius. Many years later, in 2018, American Crime Story released a whole season dedicated to telling the dramatized story of the assassination of Gianni Versace. According to the public, the show was a hit, an insider look into the late designer's flashy, alluring lifestyle. However, according to the family, like most say with shows produced like this, many events were dramatized, saturated, and incorrect with the details and timelines of his life. The Versace family disapproved of the show and found the portrayal of the story quite awful. Nonetheless, it's definitely worth a watch. The series does an excellent job in depicting the style and feel of the time. Just keep in mind, if you're looking for actual facts and events, Luxe Collective is obviously the best place to find them. Despite legally being able to claim full control of her inheritance at the age of 18, Allegra opted to focus entirely on her studies and didn't begin real participation in the business of Versace until she was 24. In 2011, she would become a director of the company. Gianni idolized Donatella's daughter and called her "my little princess." Meanwhile, Donatella's son didn't receive any stake in the company. He tends to focus on his own personal goals, and his late uncle left him his art collection, which includes 2 Picasso pieces. In 2014, the Versace family made the decision to sell 20% of the company to the Blackstone Group, a private equity firm, with the aim to move Versace forward as a business. This was a time they needed help the most. In 2016, Jonathan Ackroyd stepped in as CEO. In an attempt at revival, he aimed to overhaul people's perception of the brand. Working alongside Donatella, together they were victorious. They'd managed to pull off what has been one of the biggest comebacks in the world of fashion. So much so that fashion journalists dubbed 2017 the year of Versace. The collections produced paid homage to her brother's loudest designs, styles, and prints. She even brought out the women Gianni featured the most to close her spring 2018 show. In 2018, Michael Kors's holding group, known as Capri Holdings, acquired the Versace fashion house for $2.1 billion. The group also owns Jimmy Choo and of course Michael Kors. Donatella stayed on as Versace's chief creative officer and Santo remained chairman and president. Donatella spoke out on the acquisition, saying, "We believe that being part of this group is essential to Versace's long-term success, and the family now owns collectively the equivalent of 176 million of Capri Holdings in group stock." Today, Donatella Versace keeps creating iconic it pieces, alongside continuing to team up with the it celebrities. Artists such as Dua Lipa and Maluma are currently very close to the brand and star in some of its most popular global campaigns. Dua has been a Versace muse for a while. Her first connection to the brand was in 2018, when she wore Versace for her first ever Brit Award performance. She was then the face of the Winter 21 campaign. She opened and closed the Spring 22 show. And in 2023, Dua and Donatella teamed up to create a co-designed collection called La Vacanza. It debuted in Cannes and consisted of many 90s inspired looks, including many pieces revisited from Gianni's time out of the Versace archives. We saw this fall 1992 cage cargo look reimagined, this silver co-ord skirt and jacket inspired by the fall 1994 look, these colourful power suits inspired by spring 95, and butterfly adorned chainmail inspired by Versace's look spotted on Naomi Campbell and Kate Moss in 1999. Versace is working hard to position itself as the designer to the stars. Instead of relying on traditional celebrity dressing opportunities, they strategically host their shows days before major existing spectacles to capitalise on its media attention and celebrity attendance. Their fall winter 23 show took place in LA around the same time as the Oscars. We then saw Lady Gaga turn up to the red carpet in a look hot off the runway. The strategy seems to be working. Versace has been worn by the likes of Kylie Jenner, Anne Hathaway, Miley Cyrus, Cher, Lil Nas X and countless more. From a family with frequent sudden death, they built one of the biggest Italian fashion empires we've seen, moving forward through tough times, creating icons and it pieces, making celebrities and curating pop culture moments. The masterminds behind the brand are incredible, sustaining the momentum for almost 50 years, being able to reignite the flame and grow through adversity. It seems that Versace isn't going anywhere anytime soon. But what do you think? Is their decision to join conglomerate Capri Holdings the end of their rich history and impressive reign? Or is this the next step in dominating the luxury fashion industry? Thank you very, very much for watching the end of this video. I appreciate you a lot. If you want to know more about the luxury fashion industry and are really, really interested, I would definitely recommend watching this video right here. If not, I'll see you in the next one.